Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our event with Kiara Brinkman and Chiki to celebrate the launch of their just out today debut graphic novel, Lucy in the Sky. Some of you may not know this, but Kiara and Sean not only both used to work at Booksmith, but in fact, that is also where they met. So we're especially delighted to host them here tonight to celebrate their first book together. My name is Evan Karp. I'm the events manager for Booksmith. We're an independent bookstore and mainstay of San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district since 1976. It's now my pleasure to introduce tonight's stars. Sean Chiki is a middle school teacher and cartoonist. His comic stories have been published in collections from Skoda Man Press, and his cartoons have appeared in the Funny Times. Kiara Brinkman's writing has been published in McSweeney's, One Story, and FailBetter.com. Her novel, Up High in the Trees, was a New York Times Book Review Editor's Choice and a Chicago Tribune Favorite Book of 2007. Lucy in the Sky is her first comic. Kiara and Sean live in California with their children and 2 cats. Kiara and Sean, congratulations on the book. It's such a sweet treat to have you both here with us tonight, and I am excited to turn it over to you and tell us all about Lucy in the Sky. Everybody, thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Well, thank you, Evan.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah. You know, I always look forward to maybe one day doing a book of my own. I'm a longtime friend of the Booksmith, and we're both former employees of the Booksmith. Yeah. And I remember working there and, you know, doing my own comics for a long time and thinking if I ever get a book, you know, I want to come back to the Booksmith and really look forward to doing the book launch there. And here we are, a little bit different than we imagined it would be, but so it is.
We set up, I don't know how many of those events together, putting out chairs, hooking up the microphone, all that, but we're doing it virtually. So
here
we are.
Yeah. So we thought, so mentioned that we're both former employees of the Booksmith, and in fact, that's where we met. And you want to tell the story?
We met when I started working at the store. I think it was 2007, and Sean was already at the store. We sort of slowly became friends.
Why did you come to work at the Booksmith though?
Why did I come? I had done an event at the Booksmith for my first novel, and I was looking to have some kind of part-time job while I was continuing to work on writing. So I decided that I would go to try to work at the Booksmith. So anyway, so that's how we met, and we became friends. And then I think Sean started putting, this is going to date us a lot, because at the time, I think he was making me mix CDs, which nowadays I don't think. But anyway, so.
Well, they weren't mixtapes.
Yeah, that's true. So, and then.
One thing led to another.
And now we have 3 children.
Now we have 3 children, right. So,
there we go.
Yeah, so. Anyway, we're going to go over what we plan to do tonight in just a moment, but we'd like to say a few words about the book. Some of you probably have already gotten your copy. We've gotten messages from people already that they got their pre-ordered copy. Some of you might not have it yet, might not have seen it. So this book has kind of a long and strange history, and it didn't begin as a graphic novel, really. I remember shortly after we met, I mean, we started collaborating on stuff pretty much from the start. I remember we always had ideas, music and art projects and things like that.
Comic strips and things.
Yeah.
But, the original idea, we were going to do Lucy in the Sky as a picture book for young kids. And my idea for the picture book was similar to the middle grade book, in that it contained like the finite Beatles repertoire along with an aging grandmother, and kind of putting those two things, juxtaposing them next to each other. And it just proved to be kind of too heavy of a load for a picture book. And so we were kind of encouraged to try it for an older audience. And I think there was a nudge as well from my agent, who is now our agent together, to kind of try our hand at a graphic novel, because it was uniquely one of the few areas in the literary world that was sort of growing as opposed to shrinking. So I think that's kind of the origin story there. Yeah.
So tonight we're going to go to a slideshow and show an excerpt from the book in just a moment. And then after that, we'd planned on having a conversation, interviewing each other and talking a little bit about the book.
Which, by the way, will be the longest conversation we've had in like 5 years since we've had kids. So I don't think we've, had this much time.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that.
So.
And then we'll follow that up with questions from you, whoever is out there viewing and have questions. So again, if you have questions, please put it in the chat, and Evan will forward those on to us or tell us them, and we'll try our best to answer. And then finally, we'll have a raffle. So I've got 3 items that I plan on giving away to 3 people tonight. They are 2 pieces of original artwork that I will, sorry? Yeah. So I'll show them. So these are pencils, pencil roughs. They're not even the, so these would be rough sketches that I did for some of the pages in the book. So the first one is going to be a pencil drawing of Lucy. I hope everybody can see it. Lucy at her drum kit wearing her Sgt. Pepper jacket. The second one is a sketch of the band, the Strawberry Jam. And this is based on the gatefold photo of the Beatles that appeared in the original Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band LP. And the final drawing appears in the end papers of the book. And finally, the third item is... We
pulled this off in the last 24 hours.
Right. So this is actually pretty amazing. So one of the things that we used to do together was make screen prints. It's one of our many failed business ventures. So for a long time, we were doing kids' t-shirts and clothes and making screen prints. And so we dug out our old screens and we whipped up a new screen. So this is a 3-color screen print done by hand of the Strawberry Jam's logo that appears on Lucy's kick drum.
Yeah, so that's the Lucy's band in the book is called the Strawberry Jam. Yeah. So that's their logo.
All right. Okay, so
we're gonna share an excerpt from the book now, and since a lot of you haven't been able to see the book yet, we're choosing a scene from pretty early on, so we're not gonna give too much away. This is a slumber party at Lucy's house for her 12th birthday, and it's when the girls first formulate the idea of starting a band together. So we will read this to you.
Okay, so we've decided we're going to split up the parts. So there are 3 of the future Strawberry Jam band members here, including Lucy and her friends Rupa and Vanessa, and her dad makes an appearance as well. So I shall be playing the part of her dad, and her friend Rupa. I'll be attempting my best version of a 12-year-old girl. And if any of my students are watching, I'm sure they'll find that highly amusing. And Kiara will read for Lucy and for Vanessa. So the scene begins at a slumber party. Did we say that already? Okay, all right. So, yeah. Uh-oh. Technical glitch. Let me try that once more. There we go. Okay. I can't believe you ate that tsunami roll.
It just tasted like soy sauce. Yeah, but the texture, all those tiny fishy eggs. Don't remind me.
I guess we're gonna listen to this all night.
Yep,
Is this really the Beatles?
the early stuff. You're so retro all of a sudden. Whatever, I mean, some of it's cool.
Bzz. My mom just texted me to remind me to brush my teeth and put in my retainer.
I'm still supposed to wear my retainer at night. I don't even know where the stupid thing is.
I swear, since I got my braces off, my mom is obsessed with my teeth. She just comes up to me and tells me to smile, and then she's totally amazed, like, look what money can buy. I bet you don't have a single cavity.
What can I say? I was born with strong teeth.
Perfect teeth.
My grandma has eaten sweets for probably more than 60 years and no cavities. Must be in my genes or something.
Now my mom says goodnight.
Good night, Mrs. Kana. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite.
Hilarity. You know, your dad's kind of cool. I mean, relatively speaking.
No, he's not. Dorky cool. No way. Mrs. Kana, if you're still awake, Rupa has a crush on Lucy's dad.
At least I don't have a crush on the school librarian.
For the millionth time, I think he's nice, that's all. Oh my God, I just had the best realization.
What?
We could totally be a band. Drums, keyboard, voice.
But I don't have a keyboard.
We'll get you one. I think we're also going to need a guitar player.
Georgiana Burke.
Right, so who's going to ask her?
It will be long, yeah. I did that pretty good. Don't we also need a bass player?
Dad! Mr. Sutcliffe's going to be our bass player.
Everything okay?
Can we have a band without a bass player?
Sure, why not? The Doors were just drums, guitar, and keyboard. Ray Manzarek could make his keyboard sound like a bass.
Ray who?
Ray Manzarek, Jim Morrison, Break On Through to the Other Side, Light My Fire.
Oh, yeah.
And the White Stripes were a duo, guitar and drums. You listen to the White Stripes? Well, I'm aware of them.
He reads music magazines. So we're all set. Except I have to learn how to play the drums.
Ding! Expecting a message from your boyfriend?
He's not my boyfriend. It's not official on Facebook or anything. We're just going out.
So where do you go out?
Nowhere yet. I'll talk to Georgiana.
Yeah, right.
I will.
Okay, so hopefully that whets people's appetites, and much drama ensues from that point. So since we had this event on the day of the book's release, and this is our first book, and not many people have seen our work or have seen the book. Only a few people have seen the book so far, know the story. We were trying to think of how to talk about the book in an interesting way, and I always enjoyed listening to artists and writers talk about their craft and the process of whatever it was they did, drawing or writing or whatever, especially cartoonists. I'm a big gearhead for art supplies, and I love listening to artists talk about stuff like that. But it occurred to me that I don't think I ever actually heard a writer-artist team who did comics talk to each other about their work. It was always, one person being asked the questions from somebody outside of the book. So like Kiara said, we haven't, having three small children, and the first one, Esme, our oldest, who's now 6, she came along. She was born shortly after I began work on the book. So the book, I had been working on it for as long as she was, longer than she was alive. And so so during that time that I drew the book, we really, we would try to catch those moments here and there where I could check in with Kiara. But for the most part, we worked separate.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think it's pretty cute or sweet that we make these books together, but we do it pretty separately. So yeah. I have my office space that I write in, and now it's pretty much a laptop in the corner of a playroom. And Sean does his drawing in the garage and separate. And so once in a while we can talk, but it's rare. So yeah.
So this is really the first time we've actually been able to talk about Lucy at length.
Yeah.
In any way. So okay, were you going to begin?
Okay.
And we have some questions prepared for each other.
Yeah. So I'll ask Sean a question, and then he'll ask me a question. We'll just alternate back and forth, just for a little bit here. So the first question is, so I didn't mean to write such a long script. This was the first script that I'd ever written, and I didn't realize when I was writing it that it was going to turn out to be such a long book. So I guess that was kind of a beginner's mistake or accident. But given that, I think that this is definitely the longest project you've worked on, both in terms of length of the book and the amount of time you've spent on it. So I guess I'm wondering what it was like to draw these same characters hundreds and hundreds of times. And did it get easier or harder? And I have some more follow-up questions on that, but I'll let you take that first.
So yeah, the book is, I guess, on the longer side for a graphic novel. Although 300 pages isn't that long. That's about the average size of a novel in prose. But drawing 300 pages is, it takes a long time to write, but drawing a page can take me a whole day to pencil and a whole day to ink. And that's if I put 8 hours into it. So making a 300-page comic, is really quite a task. And I got to say, when I read the script and saw how many pages of script there were, and I kind of could do a calculation in my head how many pages of artwork that was going to amount to, and I knew it was going to be, pretty long. I think I was actually kind of happy about it because okay, so I hear a lot of cartoonists talk about the first 1,000 pages. They do. They call the first 1,000 pages or the first 1,000 crappy pages. And when you're honing your skills, your drawing skills, you want to get those 1,000 pages out of the way, and then you've developed your style and blah blah blah. And I'd drawn a lot before starting on this book, and I don't know if I've ever drawn 1,000. That sounds like a really large number, but hundreds of pages before this, but never on one project, drawing the same characters over and over again. And I think that by the time I got to the end of the book, it was 289 or whatever. I felt like I finally was drawing Lucy, like I could draw her in my sleep. And and Lucy is the one character that appears on pretty much every page. And it kind of takes that work. And now when I go back and I look at the first 20 pages or so, they look really weird to me because I'm still kind of, trying to get it down. And then I think by about page 100, I got, the characters to look the way I wanted. And I did draw concept drawings beforehand and everything. It really takes drawing them again and again and again and again in order for it for them to evolve. And it makes me think of I used to love to watch The Simpsons, and I used to collect the DVDs when they would come out, and I remember, I saw the first season when it came out, but then going back and watching that first season on DVD, I remember thinking, this looks so bizarre. The characters look so weird. They don't look like they did, even 3 seasons on, and even their voices hadn't evolved yet. Homer he still sounded like Walter Matthau, and so it really does take that. And so I think, I like the fact that it was such a long project, and it required me to draw them so much. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite character to draw?
I don't know. Besides Lucy, Lucy was kind of fun because Lucy's face is basically the shape of Tintin's face. If anybody knows the Tintin cartoons, it's like a round oval and a little pug nose and 2 dots. Really simple, and it's and I wanted to use a simple face like that so that you could sort of project yourself on this character and not be so distracted by the character. And that's something that cartoonists do a lot anyway. But besides Lucy, I kind of like drawing Rupa a lot, and I think it was her hair. And if you look, her hair, she's got this hairstyle that sort of, it kind of evolved as well. And in the first few panels that you see her, it's sort of there like a helmet, and then it kind of started curling up, and I really kind of got into drawing these scalloped curls on the flip of her hair. And I also like drawing Pete, the guy in the music shop, because his hair color changes every time we see him. And so that was like one of those little jokes. Okay. So you hadn't read the story since it was in script form, and reading it now as a comic, and I know you've been reading it with Esme, so I don't know if you finished it yet or not. How do you feel that it conforms or it diverges from your original idea?
That's a tough question. Thank you. Okay, yeah, so I am reading it with Esme. And she's still pretty little, so she's not reading a lot of words on her own yet. So she's really focused on the images and trying to figure out the story based on the pictures in the book. So as we're reading it together, I'm sort of seeing it myself and also seeing it through her eyes, which is kind of cool. And she points out all these tiny little details that I probably wouldn't have noticed. She has a very keen eye, which I appreciate. I think the biggest difference between seeing it in script form and seeing it now as a book is really the pacing of it, because when I was writing the script and I'd read it out loud to myself to sort of hear the dialogue and make sure it sounded as true as I could get it. Everything sort of had the same beat, lasted the same amount of time. Whereas when it's drawn in the panels, there are some moments that are much quicker and some that are much slower. And once in a while in the script, I would put some instruction to Sean in terms of like, this is an important moment, so do something here. But for the most part, I let you sort of pick out which are the emotional highlights, right? So you decided what to do slow and what to do fast. So I think the biggest difference seeing it this way is just the pacing of the book. Yeah.
Okay. I have a follow-up to that. How has my interpretation of the characters changed from your original conception of them? Because I have to sort of visualize them from what you've written in words.
Right. Yeah, and I mean I've seen the characters, that from the time you started drawing them. So I sort of, I knew what they were going to look like. I think that the adults actually came out most closely to how I envisioned them. And I think it's most striking for me to see Lucy now, actually, because to see her as her own person. Because when I was writing the script, I think for me, I was really drawing a lot on my own self as a 12-year-old and my own emotional life as a 12-year-old. there are a lot of similarities, and that, you know, I was also an only child. I was also the youngest person in my class. And I maybe like the new kids on the block for a little bit longer than everybody else. And I sort of insulated myself in this little bubble of innocence in a way that Lucy does. So she, in script form, she really felt like a piece of me. So to see her now as separate, like on the page as her own person, is pretty strange and kind of, it's just sort of kind of amazing to me. And I think also I had my vision of Georgiana, who is the friend that gets mentioned at the slumber party, who they're going to ask to join their band, who's not really their friend yet. My vision of her was a little bit more glamorous, I think, and I actually prefer the way that you drew her. She seems more like a real kid, and a little bit more, I think, engaging and sympathetic than she would have been if she had been a more elusive, glamorous figure. So
I enjoyed drawing Georgiana as well, but mostly I enjoyed giving her the different T-shirts with band names on them more than anything else, I think. And her guitars too. It was fun for me to draw guitars.
okay,
so your turn.
Okay, so I'll ask another. Okay, so so I clearly did not write a sort of high action adventure book here. I don't think I would know how to do that. And so this book, there's a lot of dialogue, a lot of conversation, talking heads. So I imagine that is more challenging to make interesting visually on the page. So let's see, can you talk a little bit about how you work to make the book visually dynamic, and how also your use of color, how you use color to sort of create some variation?
Yeah. So the color thing is something that I was that I made some very conscious decisions about how to go about doing the color. And I wanted to give the book for the most part a naturalistic look color-wise. Although the color, when you see the color printed, it's usually different than how you see it on your computer, and I'll talk about that later. But I was kind of following the style of I mentioned Tintin, so Hergé is like probably my single most important influence as a cartoonist in style, and I was obsessed with those comics as a kid and tried to copy the style and do my own comics, making it look like Hergé. And I always liked his really understated use of color. He wasn't doing anything very expressionistic with the color. So I stuck with that for the most part, except when there was music. So if you notice in the passages in the book where the band is playing, it always kicks into this sort of palette of pink and orange and blue and purple and green. And I tried to reserve it for those moments, and a few other things here and there to express some sort of emotion. But for the most part, it was pretty naturalistic in the color. And so far as drawing a lot of dialogue, I have this hanging by my drawing board, and I printed it off the internet. It floats around on the internet, and it's a famous thing among people who are comics geeks. If you know who Wally Wood is, he was a famous, if you don't know who he was a famous cartoonist from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And he created this thing called 22 Panels That Always Work. And if you're stuck with a lot of dialogue, these are his ideas to make it look more interesting. So I would use that every once in a while, but actually not a lot. And I think I tended to approach how I was drawing the panels kind of like in a film-like way. So there's a lot of scenes where it's kind of like the same camera shot again and again and again. You're switching back between these two cameras on two different people talking, and I would actually, light box my drawing of one panel and lightbox it onto a follow-up panel, so everything would look exactly the same except for like a little minor change in the character's face. And I relied a lot on facial expressions and pauses and dramatic beats and things like that, rather than going crazy with all these different angles and shots. And facial expressions, when you're using a style where, like I mentioned, Lucy is such a simple face. And then, you know, if I needed to do something where her eyes are looking in one direction and she's got these Little Orphan Annie circles for eyes, and how do I do that? So that became a bit of a challenge to give facial expressions to a lot of the characters.
I guess a sort of follow-up to that is how many pages ahead do you storyboard, or were you just taking it a scene at a time?
Yeah, I was pretty bad at that. I was drawing this one on the fly, and I think it was because I was in such a crunch to get it done, and I kept, you know, trying to find the time to do it was difficult, and trying to meet the deadline and get it done on time. I think if I did it over again and if I had as much time as I wanted to, I would thumbnail out, you know, pages in advance, which is what I'm doing for the one that I'm working on now, our second one that will be coming out. But I didn't do that. I hardly did that at all for this. I literally drew it page 1, page 2, page 3 until the end in sequence, and just from sketches right onto the page. Yeah. It's my turn? Okay. Okay, so before Lucy, you were writing in prose, and how has writing for comics changed the way you write or you approach a story?
Okay. Yeah, it changed a lot because when I was writing prose, I tended to write in first person or a very close third person. So I was really inside a character's head. And I remember before I started working on this script, you gave me a very direct challenge, which was to write the script without any exposition or narrative like overlay to sort of explain what was going on or to get inside a character's head. And when you said that, I thought, well, that's impossible. But I did it, and it felt like a really big victory. So without exposition and any sort of narrative overlay going on, I was left with dialogue and external things that I could describe being shown, characters moving, physical interaction. And so in some ways, I think it really simplified the writing process for me because it took out a lot of layers. But I think the challenge was to get at all the emotion that I wanted to get at in a way that felt authentic, using only dialogue or brief interactions or movements, or I guess there are some beats of silence in the book. And doing that without any explanation or internal monologue. And I think the one trick that I had up my sleeve was the soundtrack, the music. Incorporating the music let me sort of sneak in a layer of storytelling, and to suggest an emotion without trying to hit it too on the nose with a particular song, which is easy to do as well. So I guess writing prose is a much more laborious process. I could spend an hour on a sentence, and this I could write a scene pretty quickly. And I think the script writing is probably better suited to our life now with 3 kids, because I don't have the time to spend an hour on a sentence. And I think also the scripts are easier for me to jump back into. So if I'm trying to write a novel and I get pulled out of it for 2 days or a week, to get back into it is really, really hard. And it's easier to jump back into to script.
Okay. Was there anything in the story that you thought worked better as a comic than it would have as a novel?
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I've been thinking of it as a comic for so long now that it's hard to even imagine it otherwise. But I think what I like a lot is how the music comes across and with the added dimension of the visuals. And I think it's partly because music from, the Beatles, like late 60s, is so colorful and so vibrant and visual. And you're able to capture that with color and the style of your illustrations. And also, I just, with the Beatles, I would study those album covers and those liner notes, which we get to see Lucy doing. And you're able to take the style of the Beatles as it progresses and incorporate that progression into the artwork in the book. Even, I know you said you did that mostly in the moments of music, but I noticed it also in places where there's not music. Do we have a copy here? Let's see. Where is it? Like on, here, I'll have you show it on page, page 165 here. So here,
the revolver.
Yeah.
The revolver cover, and there's Lucy, and you can see it. Lucy and Rupa are on a phone conversation, and
it takes the form of the sort of early psychedelic art style of the revolver cover. And so that's a moment that's not specifically about music. It's just two characters having a conversation, and you bring in the progressing style of the Beatles there. Yeah. So, okay.
Your turn.
All right, ask a question. Okay. Okay.
You want to do one more?
Yeah.
This last one, and then we move on.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So what was it like illustrating something that you didn't write? Because I don't think you'd ever done that before. You always had complete control of the whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, and I'm a control freak, and it's always been hard for me to collaborate with somebody, especially if it involves a story that's my idea, because I have my vision of it, and I really don't like people messing around with it. But drawing a story that was already written was kind of was pretty liberating, because I could just concentrate on the drawing and not be so tied to what the story was. And I'm not a great writer anyway, so it really freed me up. There were some, I think there were some challenges for me in trying to get the characters to, I was always worried that the characters would look like how you saw them in your head. So I would come to you and say, well, what does this character remind you of an actor that you could name? Right. So I'd have some sort of reference to what this person looked like. I think it allowed me to find a lot of creative solutions to, writing a script. Like you said, you hadn't written comics before. So in your script, I remember reading it at first, and there were moments in there where I would read it, and although it was an interesting thing, I was thinking this isn't going to translate into a drawing. And, for instance, you have a character shrugging their shoulders in response to something. And I was trying to, how am I going to draw that and make it, understandable that they're shrugging their shoulders. So there were, it gave me some opportunities to find some creative solutions to interpret what you had down there.
I think it's because 12-year-olds shrug a lot.
Yeah, they do.
So.
Oh, you want me to? Okay.
I think that's better.
All right. So, okay, last question. Would you ever consider writing a superhero story?
You would really like that, wouldn't you? You would like to draw that. Is that another challenge? I think, okay, so my only reference really for that superheroes would be from watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I think in order to draw to write a superhero comic, I would have to read some superhero comics. So you would have to recommend some of them, because I'm not going to jump into that without having ever read any before. But I guess I would be open to it. I think I like the idea of.
We got some questions coming in here. So
okay.
Good.
Yeah, I like the idea of maybe coming up with a female superhero and just focusing on like her origin story. So it would be kind of like a coming of age story with a twist.
Yeah. So this is from one of my students, actually.
Okay.
Hi, Samara. How long did the process take? So an incredibly long time is the short answer.
The writing, I think I probably wrote the script pretty quickly. I think just a few months of time, but it got revised a lot. So if you put in all the rounds of revision that went in, that would probably be like a year of writing, I would say. And drawing was like 6 years.
Yeah. I started drawing it. Well, actually, I started drawing it even before that. I'd drawn like the first 20 pages as something for our agent to try to sell, and then the rest of the book took about 5 years, I guess, maybe, and then revisions on top of that. So longer than it should have, but we had 3 kids during that time. So okay, so thank you, Samara, for that question. If there are any other questions, we'd like to open it up to any of the viewers who have anything else that they'd like to ask.
And if not, we can do our raffle as well. Yeah.
So I'm going to keep the chat box open. If anybody else, please remember, if you have a question, put it in the chat, and we'll. Oh, here we go. Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy. What is your favorite Beatles album and why? Well, that's like the impossible question.
Yeah.
Right?
This comes up in the book, actually. The dad can't answer the question of what his favorite Beatles song is, because it changes all the time, right? Depending on who you are that day and what mood you're in. But today, what's your favorite Beatles album, Sean?
Well, actually, my favorite Beatles album has remained the same now for a while. I kind of settled on one.
I have one.
And it's Abbey Road.
Oh.
And is that yours too?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll say why it is for me. So it's not,
I know why it is. It's because it's like a suite of songs,
well, right? There's that, right? And you have the dad saying that. So in the book. So there's that. I think that as an album, it's like, I think it's their most finely crafted as an album. Their style changes so much from, I love their early stuff just as much as their psychedelic stuff and then the later stuff. But I think as an album, as a one complete work of art, I think it's like perfect, or it's almost perfect. And especially if you listen to it, not on a CD, but as an LP, where you have to turn the record over, because it begins with Come Together, which is the greatest opener, and side one ends with I Want You, and it ends with like white noise flowing into the mix, and then it suddenly just stops, and you have to go over and pick up the needle and turn the record over, and then what happens? It's Here Comes the Sun, and then that whole suite at the end. And I listen to the album still, and if I'm in the right mood, it'll make me cry. I think it's just so beautiful.
I think a close second for me would probably be the White Album, just because.
Why do you like that one?
I think because they sort of let loose and just did whatever they wanted, and I appreciate it. And then I guess the third would be Let It Be. So I guess they're all.
Well, Let It Be is in your top 3.
Yeah, I
wow.
think that would be up there. Yeah. So I guess it's all late Beatles stuff.
Yeah. The White Album. I like that the White Album just doesn't stop. There's no pauses between the tracks. It's one song ends and the other one begins right away, and there are all these little they're like little snippets of noise and conversation in between some of the songs. And
I feel
so-
like George really got his first, like, really great song on there.
Yeah.
And that makes me really happy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Here's to George.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. If there are any other questions, please put them in. And we've got 10 minutes left. So be happy to answer any others. But Evan, should we start the raffle now, do you think?
Yeah, sure. We can do the raffle. This has been really delightful, you guys. Really enjoyed hanging out with y'all throughout this. And I just want to say while we pull the raffle numbers, if anybody's holding on to a question, feel free to drop it in the chat. I don't think it's too late to ask. So the first winner of our raffle, let's see, one, two. Okay, drum roll. I know you all have a drum roll going at home. The first winner, and this is for one of the two drawings, I think which drawing is this for?
So yeah. Lucy at the drums.
Lucy behind the kit. The winner for this original drawing is Allison Brown. Congratulations, Allison.
All right.
Hey, Allie.
Allison, I will drop my email in the chat now, and please just send me a line, and I will coordinate with you to get you this print. Thank you, guys. Okay, so there's my email in the chat. So the second prize, which Sean is holding up now, is another original drawing from the book. I think this is the bandmates. And so the winner of this drawing is, one moment, please. Drum roll again. Somehow I haven't done a whole lot of virtual raffles. I'm still getting used to this thing. Okay, the winner of this drawing is Emily Benz. Emily, congratulations.
Oh.
Hey, Emily.
If you guys are wondering how I'm doing the raffle, we just put you all on a random number generator. So I've assigned everybody a number, and that's how we're pulling them. So last prize, third and final prize. Is the screen print, Strawberry Jams, the logo from the band in the book. So winner of this screen print is, drum roll, it's Belen Rashidi. Congratulations, Belen. I put my email in the chat. For all the winners, please just send me a line and we'll coordinate and get you guys your prizes. I'm gonna just hop on over to the chat real quick and see if we've received any other questions here. Let's see.
So while we're checking that, maybe do you want to go get the?
Yeah, I'll go get that.
All right, we have some special guests to see us off. Yeah, glad you could make it, Belen. That was be happy to send that to you.
So I know that Kiara has stepped away, but Sean, I do have a question for you both. This is from Young, who is asking if there was any material either from the script or from the art that you drew, Sean, that didn't make it into the book. Also, I think Young has numerous questions. I'm just going to ask them all. Also, suggested soundtrack while reading the book. And also, what is Kiara's favorite Buffy episode? These are all important questions.
Oh my gosh.
So there is a soundtrack actually at the end of the book. We made a list of every song that's there's some special guests.
Can you see their shirts? It says Strawberry Jam.
We printed these up today.
There's one more.
There's one more. So these are the three doubles. So this is Esme, who was born right after I started work on the book, and the other two have followed. This is Julian, and these are here. So to answer your question, was there any extra material that didn't make it into the book? The answer is no. Everything made it into the book. And there's a soundtrack at the end of the book, a list of all the songs that are mentioned or appear or somebody talks about or somebody's listening to in the book. So you can find all those songs online. I've listed who the artists are, who the record label is, and the Beatles albums are listed in both the UK and the American releases. So yeah, make a playlist from that.
Now we've got my dad here too. This is Grandpa Bill. He's been taking care of the kids.
Okay.
So, favorite Buffy episode, I think would be, I think it's called Hush, where they, the very beginning, they all lose the ability to speak. And so the episode is totally silent, no words. That's probably my favorite.
Pure chaos in here.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you get to share the link?
Oh yeah. So before we go, we want to mention that I think Evan is going to share some links for our website, our Facebook, Instagram, and we also want to mention that we recorded. We actually wrote a song that the Strawberry Jam plays in the book. We actually wrote the whole song. You see a little snippet of it.
I completed the lyrics for the song, and then Sean.
And I made a recording of it. So if you, there will be a link for the YouTube video for the song. It has the recording of the song plus the guitar chords and the lyrics. And we invite everyone or anyone who is into recording music to make your own version. The lyrics and the guitar chords are there. And if you want to put a link to your own version of it into the comments of the YouTube video, we'd really like to hear other people's versions of the song. So, okay, I think that's
All right,
that's it, right?
All we got. All right,
Thank you so much.
Everyone.
And back to you, Evan.
Oh, thank you guys. I don't really have much else to say other than that we are offering signed copies of Lucy in the Sky from Booksmith. You should get your copy now immediately if you haven't already. We have both the paperback and the hardcover. The links are just beneath the video. You can click through there. I'll also drop them in the chat shortly. Hi, kids, by the way. It's so nice to see you guys. I love your shirts.
All right.
And, thank you. Congratulations, Kiara and Sean. This has been really wonderful, and it's been a treat to hear you guys. Thank you all so much for joining us. Take care and be well, be safe out there, and go get Lucy in the Sky and share it with all your friends and enemies, and support Booksmith forever. Thank you all so much. Have a good night.
Bye.